Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. I've got some real good news, if you can let me start the program with that good news. Last week, I had my 89th birthday. And so there were some people who put up a challenge. They said, we want to put up a challenge of $89,000 to build water wells, because it coincided with National Water Day or Worldwide Water or whatever. Well, I'm pleased to report that against that challenge, you raised $368,000.
That'll build some wells.
Oversubscribed at 4 to 1.
Amen.
Well, isn't that great? And so we'll drill a lot of wells, and there's some high-tech wells that have solar-powered motors, and there's a whole lot of stuff in there. But thank you very much, and we just are very pleased at that response, and that made it a super happy birthday, and a lot of people are going to have clean water all around the world because of it. Well, the report is out. No collusion after 22 months, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 witnesses. Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller has cleared the president of any collusion with Russia and finds no obstruction of justice. Well, our Washington correspondent Amber Strong is going to give us a full report now.
No collusion, the two words echoing through Washington Sunday. But as with most things here in D.C., division is growing.
No collusion, no obstruction.
The president expressing exoneration Sunday, celebrating the news with what else? A tweet. But Democrats led by House Judiciary Chair Jerry Nadler aren't convinced and want Attorney General Barr to testify before Congress.
Attorney General Barr, who auditioned for his role with an open memorandum suggesting that the obstruction investigation was unconscionable, made a decision about that evidence in under 48 hours.
Barr's principal conclusions of Mueller's report are broken into two questions. Did the Trump campaign collude with the Russians during the 2016 election? And two, did the president commit obstruction of justice? When it comes to collusion, Barr states, the special counsel's investigation did not find the Trump campaign or anyone associated with it conspired or coordinated with Russia in its efforts to influence the election. On the issue of obstruction, he writes, the special counsel states that while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. But Barr and Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein come to their own conclusion that the evidence developed during the special counsel's investigation is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense. The overall investigation is the result of 22 months of work by 19 lawyers, 40 FBI agents, and includes 2,800 subpoenas, 500 search warrants, 13 requests to foreign governments, and 500 witness interviews. Still, Democrats say they're concerned about Barr's partiality and vow to continue investigations into the president. Republicans say it's all an elaborate plan for impeachment.
Listen, if anyone thinks that the Mueller report being concluded is the end of the Democrats' attempt to take down President Trump, they haven't been paying attention the last 2 years.
A point of unity here in Washington, politicians on both sides of the aisle say they want the full report released. William Barr says he wants that too, but is working with the special counsel on how much of it can be released. No timetable on when that's going to happen. Amber Strong, CBN News in Washington.
Well, Jay Sekulow is on the president's, he's the key member of the president's legal team, and Jay's joined us. Jay, is the president relieved? Is he happy? Is joy in the White House today?
There's a happy spirit in the White House last night, and including today as well. And the president, of course, is glad that this is over. And as he said from the outset, there was no collusion and no obstruction, and that is now the conclusion of this 2-year investigation. And of course, as one of the chief lawyers involved in this case, I will tell you that, Pat, I have appreciated the prayers of a lot of people that are watching this broadcast right now, and our legal team did a phenomenal job. God was gracious, and a lot of students from Regent University Law School that became lawyers in the last, say, 10 years got to work on this case. So that was pretty historic, too.
Let me ask you about the origin of all this stuff. There's a fellow named Christopher Steele, a Brit, a questionable gumshoe type, and there was that Fusion GPS dossier. How did all this thing start? Was that? Could you tell us about the origin of?
Yeah, no, I can now. So there's this counterintelligence investigation that starts called Crossfire Hurricane. And that investigation is in large part based on FISA warrants and the Christopher Steele dossier, which also led to some of these FISA warrants. We now know, and as James Comey himself said, they were unverified and salacious. It was funded by Fusion GPS, and that created a very serious issue legally and politically, frankly, is what ended up happening there. The end result of all of this was the fact that you have a development that took place, and under the law, both under the law involving this collusion conspiracy theory and obstruction, the fact was there was no evidence of either. And as the Attorney General said, there was no evidence to bring forward an obstruction case. Bob Mueller called it difficult facts and law, and you don't bring cases when you've got difficult facts and difficult law.
Well, the president can fire an attorney general, and he certainly can discuss cases with his subordinates. How can that be obstruction?
Well, the Department of Justice said it can't be, and you can't have obstruction by tweet. So that whatever theory may have been proposed, and I'm kind of speculating on this, as it was reviewed. So what you saw in the letter was where the line that says, well, we don't conclude the president committed a crime. We don't exonerate him either. There's 2 points on that. Well, you know, prosecutors' jobs aren't to exonerate. They either prosecute or decline to prosecute. Here, they couldn't make a determination of whether there was a violation, so they, pursuant to basically Department of Justice policy, took it to the Office of Legal Counsel. That's the office that would look at the theory they're proposing, looking at the facts, and determine if there was a legal violation. And the OLC, in conjunction with the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and the Attorney General, determined there was not. In fact, if you read that provision of the order, it says, in cataloging the president's actions, many of which took place in public view, the report identifies no action that, in our judgment, constitutes obstructive conduct that had a nexus to a pending contemplated proceeding and were done with corrupt intent, each of which, under department's principles of federal prosecution guiding charging decisions, would need to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt to establish an obstruction of justice case. And again, they reported no actions that would reach that level. So it was a sweeping victory all the way around on this issue, and I think this is a good day for the United States.
Jay, one thing we pointed out, it looked like it was a perjury trap, that if the president had gone on, there's almost no way that you can avoid perjury, and you and Rudy kept him from going onto that trap. How did you get it done?
Well, look, the president wanted to be fully transparent and fully cooperative, and he was. I mean, 1.4 million pages of documents were sent over to the special counsel. Dozens and dozens of witness interviews by White House officials for hundreds of hours took place. And we provided responses in writing. So I actually think what happened here was a request for an interview with the president, which they made, we did not think was appropriate under the law. In other words, the law that establishes the basis upon which you would have the right to basically interview the president, which would require under the ESPY standard that you couldn't get this information from any place else, that they could never meet it. And that's ultimately why I do not think they sought a subpoena.
Let me ask you about what these congressmen are doing. It's my understanding that they have to be, it has to be pursuant to some legislative initiative to go through all these subpoenas and so forth. Am I correct in that, or can they just go on a fishing expedition?
You're 100% correct. So there has to be what's called a legitimate legislative purpose for them to move forward with the hearing. So you've got Judiciary and House Intel, and they've got oversight. And the question you have to ask, your first question you have to ask is, what is the appropriate legislative purpose for these inquiries? And that is issue number one. And here's another thing that I think is very important for the American people to understand. This went on for 2 years with the auspices of a special counsel. And as I said, they issued 2,800 subpoenas. They executed 500 search warrants, 500. They obtained more than 230 orders for communication records, issued almost 50 orders authorizing the use of pen registers, and that's how you track phone numbers going back and forth, 13 requests to foreign governments for evidence, and interviewed approximately 500 witnesses, and came to the conclusion, no obstruction, no collusion. So what is it exactly the House is doing?
Are you guys going to go after the Democrats on declaratory judgment to say that they need to shut them down, or are you going to just...
The way it works is the White House counsel is initially responsive to document requests that come in to the White House in official capacity, whether it's to witnesses or to the White House or to a department. Our job will be requests that come to either us as lawyers or come to clients or our client, the president, and we are going to respond accordingly. I will tell you that. We will respond accordingly and we will respond appropriately. But this is a little bit in the land of the absurd that after this report, you would see at this particular time, in my view, with all of those information, with all that information I just gave you about the scope and nature and depth of this report, that they would allow this to continue in the House and Senate. They should be legislating, not investigating.
Are you going to get any rest now that this thing's over?
Well, you know, the week is early. Look, as you know, Pat, and I appreciate your call. You've been calling and checking on me, and I appreciated that. Look, this has been a tremendous, for a lawyer to handle a case like this at the highest levels representing a president of the United States, there's not a higher honor. It was exhilarating. It was challenging. It was allowing me to use all the skills that I was trained to use. And I told my colleagues the other day, we were all trained for these moments. And let's remember that. That's what we were trained to do. And it was by God's grace that we saw a great conclusion. And I thank our legal team. And there will be more work to do. But hopefully it will not be at quite the intensity of, let's say, the last 2 years.
Congratulations. God bless you.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it.
Jay Sekulow, who is President's counsel, he and Rudy Giuliani together are the chief counsel in this entire matter. He is, of course, you know, the chief counsel of the American Center for Law and Justice. He's been a dear friend for many years. We now have CBN chief political analyst David Brody is joining with us. And David, politically, this is a huge win for the president. What do you think it's going to mean for 2020?
Oh, there's so much to unpack here, Pat. First of all, I think it's pretty clear the media has taken a huge hit here. As a matter of fact, if journalism had flags in their newsroom, they'd be flying at half staff today. A lot of mourning around the country within mainstream media circles, for sure. Look, as for 2020, Democrats have a choice. When do they want to stop digging the grave? I mean, it really is that simple. Do they want to spend their time, their platform, their energy, their focus, their power in the House on the 2020 agenda and try to beat Donald Trump at the ballot box, or do they want to go down the investigative road? Look, this is a special counsel that has done its work. Robert Mueller is now done. But there's a new special counsel in town, Pat. It's Adam Schiff, the House Intelligence Committee chairman, Elijah Cummings as well, another chairman in the House, and Gerald Nadler, the House Judiciary Committee chairman. That's the new special counsel in Washington now. They're informal, if you will. I'll put them in air quotes. But they have to decide, and I think it's pretty clear that they've already decided, we're going to go down this road and try and get Donald Trump any way, any form, any fashion. And if they do that, they suck the oxygen from the 2020 race, and it becomes all sorts of problems down the road for Democrats.
Don't they see that the American people are sick of this, that the American people want the president to do his job and they want America to go forward? This is not in support of the United States. It's in support of their political agenda, don't you think?
For sure, Pat, that's a really great point. Look, the American people are not stupid. They may not be as informed as they need to be as a voting electorate, but they're not stupid when it comes to being street smart. They understand the deal here. Look, the no collusion, no collusion, no collusion. It's what Trump had been saying for all of this time. That was the big enchilada, and the big enchilada became nada, nothing. It's over. And folks realize that. So all of this other stuff, all of these extra investigations, look, if Robert Mueller, the nonpartisan guy, supposedly, some people would argue with that, obviously, but look, if he's the nonpartisan guy and 500 witnesses, 2,800 subpoenas, he couldn't find anything. Do the American people really think that the Democrats are going to be fair in this process? Well, of course not. Look, I think the Democrats have a major credibility problem here. You had, for 2 years, they were talking about that this is going to be collusion, and it wasn't. And let's go back to Brett Kavanaugh. They were playing political games there as well, and they took a major black eye on that. You put those two things together, and you have a credibility narrative with the Democrats that could really, really hurt them in 2020.
Lindsey Graham was saying, I think there should be a special counsel to investigate the Justice Department and those who were engaging in all this spy stuff against the president. What do you think?
Well, I think they're going to go down that road. I mean, Donald Trump wants to go down that road. Lindsey Graham, who's the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, seems to want to do that as well. As a matter of fact, James Comey tweeted yesterday, the former FBI director, he tweeted, "So many questions," is what he put. And Lindsey Graham tweeted back, "Jim, you're absolutely right. I'll see you here in front of my committee." They're going to go down this road for sure. I think there is a potential problem, though, for this president and for the Republican Party. Look, they've won. Do your 24-hour victory lap. But if you're going to continue down this road, and I understand they want to have investigations, and that makes sense, but at the same time, maybe it might be a good idea. They have to think about this. It's something they'll have to contemplate if they just want to kind of move on, take the victory, take the W, if you will, and then play for 2020 rather than continuing to relitigate some of this and keep it in the news.
I noticed Marco Rubio was saying that the Green New Deal won't really help the rising waters. He's got a proposal, for a government study that'll really do some good, helping the coastal areas. And the Green New Deal can sink the ship, don't you think? I mean, it looks like that the young woman is taking all the old men onto the boat with her. It may be a cruise to nowhere.
Yeah, well, the young woman, AOC, is now she's being called because no one wants to say Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So we just call her AOC. It saves breath and it saves syllables. But yes, for sure, she has this Green New Deal, as you know, Pat, and it's radical. And look, that's not just conservatives saying that. That's even some moderates in the party, the Democrat Party. They're very concerned about where this is going. Donald Trump made fun of it the other day in his 2-hour CPAC speech, talking about that the only way we're going to be able to watch television in the future, according to the Green New Deal, is if the wind blows the right way. I mean, who in the world knows what's going to happen? Of course, the pie in the sky scenario, and I'm not making this up, this is their document, they'd love to see, the progressives, AOC, the Green Deal, they would love to see a nation, an America, without airplanes. Of course, the Democrat senator from Hawaii said, well, how am I going to get home? So, look, I mean, it's a whole big kit and caboodle of socialism that the Democrats are going to have to really come to reckon with here. So you've got no collusion. You've got that problem for the Democrats. You've got the socialism problem, and we haven't even gotten to late-term abortion. That's the trifecta, Pat.
Would you like to predict the outcome of the 2020 election against some nameless Democrat with the president?
Well, Pat, thank you so much for giving me that opportunity. But no, I'd rather not. What we've learned in Washington and in politics and in this town specifically, it can change from day to day. I will say this, though. It is going to all matter about who that candidate is on the Democrat side. Look, if it's a Joe Biden, you got the blue-collar Democrats in play. If it's someone on a very progressive scale, then they're going to have to do their job, the Democrats, to get out minorities and suburban women. But look, I think this Mueller report and no collusion is going to hurt Democrats at the ballot box because moderates and independents in the middle will see this and say, you know what? Trump was right all along. The media has done Donald Trump a huge, wonderful service. They have given his fake news mantra credibility and no collusion. This report is the cherry on top of the fake news sundae.
David, thank you. We look forward to having you on. Thank you again, brother. David Brody, our political correspondent, doing a superb job as always. Well, in other news, the latest rocket attack on Israel could lead to a major confrontation between Israel and Hamas because that rocket hit near Tel Aviv and it came from Gaza. Efrem Graham has that.
Well, Pat, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is cutting short his trip to the United States after Hamas rocket struck a house just north, as you said, of Tel Aviv. The rocket slammed into the home just before dawn, wounding 7 Israelis, including children. Israel is mobilizing its defense forces and calling up reserves as Netanyahu promises a strong response.
This was a vicious attack on the state of Israel. We react with might. In the light of the security events, I've decided to cut short my visit in the U.S.
The early return means Netanyahu will not be addressing the pro-Israel AIPAC conference in Washington. Some good news, though, for the Jewish state coming out of AIPAC Sunday. Leaders from Romania and Honduras announced those nations are moving their embassies to Jerusalem, following the United States' lead. Pat?
Thanks, Efrem. Well, that's why we need a president to pay attention to what's going on in the world, because the hot spots are developing. It looks like we wiped out the last vestiges of ISIS, but nevertheless, they will regroup, so we need to stay strong in the Middle East with forces. We cannot pull everybody out, and that's true. The challenges are enormous, and down in Venezuela, I read today, and it's not confirmed, but it's one of those Drudge Report things, that there may be some Russian troops coming into Venezuela to bolster Maduro. Of course, we're talking about the Monroe Doctrine. That's pretty serious stuff. Well, we'll see what's happening. We don't have any more on that right now, but keep your eyes open for what's going on. It's an amazing world, but I would hate to see war, but, you know, that territory in Gaza should never have been given back. It was one of those things that was a mistake. The Jewish settlers were there. They had a presence, a superb presence. They would have maintained law and order in that region. Then they pulled out, and there was a vacuum. And so instead of a peaceful transition, Hamas, which is a radical group, was the controlling factor of the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. Now there's firing rockets into northern Israel. And Israel is going to retaliate. They always do, and they'll go back and forth. War in the Middle East, I hate to see it, but it looks like it's coming.